again, competitive programming or also other expertise that we quickly built around artificial intelligence and data science on how to improve the process as a whole. So that's how we started. First, we had that expertise. We pushed that to the market, and the market told us, that's good that you have that expertise, but we don't actually need this. We need that other thing from you. Can you help with this? And then that's when we basically said, yes, we can.
I love that. Yeah, it echoes a lot of different stories I've heard from founders on the show, whereas they have one product that they're bullish on and that they're putting out into the market, but the feedback then helps them adjust to identify even more so what a customer's problem is. And you have to, it's not even a pivot, it's really just like a micro adjustment. What one founder said that product market fit is a point in time or something like that. Somewhere, something along those lines. I'll have to review what exactly he said, but it's really interesting how the feedback in the market and your customer will help you adjust to identify what that fit is. But tell me a little bit more about the gap that is relevant in the recruiting world and applications. You said companies, it seems like they just post a job. There should be plenty of applicants, and then developers should just apply to many jobs and get the one that they want. Where's the disconnect? Is it the communication? You mentioned something about transparency. Where is it that you see the disconnect is between the two parties?
Frankly, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But mostly, yet it has improved over the past 6 years when we created the company. I would say that the main problem lies in the recruiting process in itself. That is basically selling or buying a job, depending on where you look at. And it's a single opportunity. It's the rarest commodity. It's just one job. And every time it's just one job. Even if there are different openings, it's just one job for one person. And so basically you could hire anyone or you could hire no one. Also, there is no pressure on time. And so the result of this is that a lot of companies are really stressed on the person they want to hire. And they want to keep the upper end in that relationship. And that's the same for candidates. And so in the end, everybody ends up retaining a lot of information. So the exact nature of recruiting makes it so that everybody who plays, all the actors need to keep a lot of information for themselves. And so companies will post job online, but they will just mask most of the information that will make it interesting for candidates. And candidates will apply, but they will keep some of the information for them. So there's this lack of information, transparency, and also the fact that not only the message itself lacks information and transparency, but also the message itself lots of time doesn't even reach their recipient. So you will post a job online, but the person that you're targeting won't see that job. Or you will send them a message on LinkedIn, but they just won't check their LinkedIn inbox. So not only is the message bad, and companies and candidates alike have really improved this, and we really see much more transparency. And that's one of the topics that we discuss a lot on our own podcast as well. So much more transparency to the recruiting process. Companies know that they have to be proactive about transparency and give that transparency to candidates. And there is much more transparency on candidates as well with public resumes, LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. So that improved. But then the second problem is the message not reaching the recipients because there is so much noise, very difficult to get signal. And that's another problem. So that's the reason why recruiting is so hard and so interesting at the same time. And I don't believe those problems will be solved anytime soon. So you can solve those problems, but rather you need to find a way around those problems.
Yeah. Why do you think they withhold information?
What do you mean?
Well, yeah, in terms of candidates and companies, do they?
So it's very easy. Companies don't want to, they're hiring for a role. First, they don't know exactly who they're hiring for because they just say, okay, we'll figure it out. So sometimes they don't just retain information on purpose. It's just they don't have that information themselves. So that's the number one symptom of a bad recruiting process. You'll have a recruiter hiring for a job, but they don't exactly know who they're hiring for because the hiring manager doesn't know either. So that's the worst in recruiting is we'll know it when we'll see it. That's the number one thing. And then the second problem with information. And that's the same for candidates, right? A lot of people don't exactly know what they want in their next job. They believe they want a better work-life balance, but maybe this is not something that they will get, or they believe that they want to work in that specific industry or want to avoid that specific industry, but will end up there anyway. That's something that we see a lot as well. So that has to do with discovery, early discovery. You really need to do discovery in the company and make sure that you surface the information, number one. And then number two is, how do you communicate that information? And communicating that information is always losing a bit of bargaining power. And that's the reason why people don't want to be revealing information. That's the reason why they don't want to be revealing salary ranges.
Sure.
Because, or sometimes another problem that we see as well is companies have that person in mind, but they will put a job online and add a lot of extra requirements that the person doesn't actually need to have, but they think that they need to, I don't know, like pocket that ideal person that would be right exactly in the scope. They're just looking for someone who is good enough to do the job, but they will try and find that specific person. And that's retaining information, because they don't want to say, we're targeting someone with 5 years of experience, but we would actually settle with someone with 2 years of experience, because otherwise they will get too many people applying that they don't want to go through all these applications, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah,
most of the time they don't have the information themselves. And when they do, they try to retain it because more bargaining power also, they think. And that's speaking for both sides.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see. And I'm always curious if it is just, better to be transparent, because, if you get what you want as a candidate and you get what you need as a company, it seems to, be the perfect scenario. But we do see that a lot, where they put all these extra requirements on, and it doesn't necessarily, candidate doesn't necessarily need to come with them, but they need to be able to have a certain personality trait to then maybe learn them, which is this whole, conversation and kind of like, thing you have to mend and mold until you can kind of put something into the right position. I'm always curious, because a lot of companies go, think about the automated route. There's a lot of automated systems, marketplaces that will, match companies and candidates. And in an ideal world, it seems that, it would work out. But I feel, and I'm curious on your take on this, that it will never be automated, because there's too many nuances. There's too many different pieces of information you need to, take into account when matching, candidates and companies and those opportunities. But curious about the automation piece. Do you ever think that, recruiting is going into an automated kind of more AI route, or is there always going to be that component of needing that human touch to, make those micro adjustments to fit candidates within jobs?
So recruiting is irrational by nature. And we've had experiments where there is a very interesting experiment that we led. We give a company a short list of 10 people. They will reach out to only 60% of them and reach out to 6 out of 10. We give the company the same 6 people. They will still reach out to 60% of them and reach out to 4. And you give them 20 people, they will reach out to 14 out of these, or 12 out of these 20. So it's irrational. It's very irrational. So in the end, you cannot avoid the human making that decision, because, as I said, you can build the best matching system. But if it's based on a poor discovery, if the person says, okay, I'm looking for someone with 5 years of experience, but they would actually settle with someone with 3, you can build the most perfect matching system around this. It won't work because it's lacking the discovery. So my view, though we do develop a lot of matching system ourselves, we do invest a lot in AI. We have a 6 people data science team, and that has been the case for 6 years. So we built a lot of things internally. And my take on this is, you shouldn't try and replace the human. You should just try and enhance the human. So try and find that right balance between saying this will be a perfect match, or this will be a good enough match. And the goal shouldn't be to say, this is the person that you will hire, because I can guarantee you that if you choose just one person, the company will not hire that person. Even though that's the perfect person, they just want to make sure that they see other people as well. So the goal shouldn't be to say the AI said that this is the person that you should hire, but the goal should say, out of these 100 applicants, here are the 20% that are the most relevant for you to look at. And here's why. And just maybe guide your eyes. Just watch out
Sure.
that person. You might have missed that person because you might have missed that experience. So just highlight that experience. And I believe that's where AI and technology is going. And that's actually a big trend in the recruiting industry. Everybody's moving away from fully automated systems, like video interviewing. At some point, we talked, and we went too far. We talked about fully automated video interviewing assessment and keep the human completely out of the loop with the help of savings.
Sure. Time.
And I
Yeah.
don't believe that, yeah. And we're moving away from this, and it's much more about, rather than saying like fully automated video interviewing, it's more like a human that can use assessment on the side to get rid of biases, because there are problems with humans as well.
Sure.
But it's a much more balanced approach between AI, technology, and the human, and that's for the best.
Yeah, no, that I feel like a lot of companies are going that route with their technology. It's enabling and empowering people to use and utilize it within their day-to-day, task list or activity or processes, because, it's you can't replace any piece of what a human does. You really have to enable them to do things more quickly and more efficiently and effectively. But you mentioned something around testing and screening, and I'm always fascinated because I feel as though, I was in recruiting and did the whole gambit, sales, from sales recruiting to some HR people to now engineers with the company I run. So we're in a similar field. But the assessment piece is interesting because engineering, it seems that inherently needs an assessment component, because you have to validate their ability to code, right? They have to write some level of code to have some idea of their abilities, whether and within that piece, if there's a really good hiring manager or VP of engineering who's reviewing a candidate, they can see the smallest details in between the lines of that code. They can dive in there, understand their process, how they approached it, and also how they would approach other problems by some project or assessment that they gave this candidate. But I'm curious, because there's so many different types of assessments, that it's really hard to pin down what is, one that is generally more productive, whether it's like, a take-home test or something on CoderByte, or a video interview, or, a work session with someone on their team, like a developer on their team that is reviewed. What have you seen in terms of assessments have been successful for screening candidates, like, engineers in particular? And engineers are an amazing bunch because they do have a specialization, which I think is inherently easier to control for in terms of understanding their ability. But I'm curious to hear from your end, what are some assessments that you've seen that are actually successful in identifying the quality of talent?
I believe there is a consensus on this and
Mhm.
in time, but the best way to assess someone is to see them work on a task that is related to the task they would perform at work.
Yeah.
So the best way to assess an engineer is to have a pair coding session with another engineer in the team and see how they work on a problem together. And same for sales, marketing, just have them work with people, because that's how you work. Once you're in the company, you will work with other people and try and solve problems.
Yeah.
The other good thing about doing a pair coding session is that you can build a much stronger relationship than using a standard assessment test. And then you can use this to also build a competitive advantage of how that person can help you grow as an engineer.